The last NBC News poll before tomorrow's election shows that when you ask Democratic likely voters what their top concern is heading into the election, their number one answer is threats to democracy. But right after that is abortion rights. For more on that, we turn now to our colleague Alex Wagner and the all-star team of political insiders she is with. Alex, over to you.
Thanks, Rachel. In 5 states, Michigan, Kentucky, Montana, California, and Vermont, abortion is literally on the ballot tomorrow. And depending on what happens in races elsewhere, we could see entire regions of the country becoming deserts for reproductive freedom. This is a map of the Midwest. Illinois is the only state there where abortion is actively protected. Michigan's 1931 trigger law that would ban all abortions has been blocked in courts, and tomorrow, Michigan voters will decide on an amendment that would enshrine abortion rights in the state's constitution. The stakes in the Southeast are even higher. It pretty much all comes down to North Carolina and whether the state legislature welcomes a Republican supermajority tomorrow. If that happens, it could effectively cut off abortion access for an entire region of the United States. Whether it's in a ballot measure or in the hands of state lawmakers, the matter of choice is being voted on across the United States tomorrow. Is that reality enough to energize Democratic voters to turn out? We will ask our insiders right here. Joining me now are former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, former Missouri Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill, and former RNC Chair Michael Steele. Thank you, my team of insiders. Jen and Claire, let me start with you in terms of that map. It's confusing, right? I think a lot of people don't fully understand the reality of the attacks on reproductive freedom and what American women could be waking up to after November 8th. Has the confusion around what's prohibited, what's allowed, what's on the ballot, do you think that has any way confused in turn voters and undermined the sense of urgency that might otherwise be felt among independents or moderate Republicans on this issue?
Go ahead. Look, I think that it could, and we don't know yet. The fact is that this is motivating women across the country, no question. But a lot of the people it's motivating are progressive white women. And the people who will be most impacted are lower income communities and communities of color. So I do think when the dust clears, whatever happens in the election, this is going to be one of those issues that people are going to wake up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever day we know more, and they may be confused about what the outcome is. They may not have thought they should have turned out and voted, and they may not know what access they have, because it does go back to the states.
Claire?
This may be the first chapter. I mean, this is going to be an evolving situation as more and more women confront the reality of their states. In my state, the government is going to force birth on a rape victim. End of story. And now they're talking about ways to get at the abortion pill, which has become the method of choice now, and a lot of that is going on online. So they're going to try to do that, and that would have to be done nationally. So hopefully we have a good day tomorrow, and we slow this thing down. But if we don't, the Republicans will continue to go too far, and this will continue to be a growing issue for our party on the positive side.
As more women face this reality, right? As the laws take effect. Michael
When it's your daughter.
Exactly.
Or your neighbor.
Or your sister.
Or your aunt. Exactly.
Do you think Republicans are, pardon the metaphor, but prepared to live in the house that they are effectively building at this stage?
No, they're not. I don't think they are. I don't think they understand the full extent of what we've just heard here. The impact it can have on, and will have, and it's already having in many respects on women across the country. A lot of the Republican women I know, many of whom are pro-life in every sense of that word, are appalled by what they're seeing happening in the states in which they live, and watching what types of legislation are being proposed and the impact it's having on women who don't share their views, but it's happening to women. So I don't think they're fully prepared for what comes next. It's always that thing in politics. It's, you can beat your chest about a lot of stuff until you actually have to act on it and follow up. And they don't know what to do in this space because, as we've already seen, we've gone from, the locals, the states can decide to, national ban.
Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham. So the men don't know quite yet what to do for the women.
The men don't know could begin a lot of sentences.